created this video to take you through the increasing the density of writing task. The purpose of this task is to merge small extracts of text into one sentence. The reason we do that is to increase the density of our writing. Density means how much information we have in each sentence. If we can put more information in a sentence, that means that we need less sentences to communicate, which is the skill that we're looking to build. There's 6 steps to do with this process, and we're going to do them on this 5 times. I'm going to take you through one, and I'm hoping you can use my example to then follow through the other 4 times. It's the same process using the same skills, but there are a couple of tricky ones thrown in, so I'll be really interested to see how you go with it. The first thing we're going to do is identify in each of our sentences what the thing or the noun is. You might remember that noun is the word we use to describe an object or something that we can name. We often call it a naming word. So that's what we're going to be looking for in this case. Now, in this sentence, there's a lot of different nouns, but what we're really interested in is what's the main noun that all of the other information refers to. So I'm going to read this to you and then we're going to unpack it. The politicians in this country are really corrupt. They are taking our rights. So this might be a sentence that we might see maybe in a newspaper or even a social media post. It's got a lot of opinion behind it, and we're going to unpack this to see if we can increase the density of what's being said. So first and foremost, there are a lot of names in here, like politicians is the name that we give to the group of people who make decisions for our country. Country is also a name. Rights is also a name. So there's 3 different nouns in here. But we're going to try and think what this sentence is all about. And the best way to do that is to usually look at what we call the subject of a sentence. And that's the part at the beginning. So we can see here, the politicians. Okay, the politicians in this country are corrupt. So who are corrupt? Well, the politicians. They are taking our rights. Well, who are taking our rights? The politicians are. So we notice that at the beginning of the sentence, the first noun that we see is usually the main subject of a sentence, and that's what we're going to be using. So step A is to highlight the noun or the thing and copy it into the noun thing box. So what does that mean? Well, in this case, we identified before, we think politicians is the thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight it, and I'm just using a color code here so you can see I'm highlighting it green because the instruction uses noun and thing in green, and the box is also green. So politicians, I think, is this word. Now I'm just going to click on it and I'm going to paste it in there. Okay, so the thing that we're talking about is politicians. Step B, highlight any pointer words that refer to the noun or thing. They're usually at the beginning of the sentence. Copy this word into the pointer box. So if we look at the beginning of the sentence, we see the word the. Now, under the red section here, pointer, words at the start of the thing. Okay, so if this is the thing, politicians are the thing, it's usually what you would say first. A word might be the, a, my, or these. And in this case, we can see this word the. So I'm going to highlight this one in red, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to put it in the box. Okay. Now, if I read across the box, I can read the politicians. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And that's the way it's currently shown in the sentence. The politicians in this country are really corrupt. So we can see how this is starting to come together. Part C. Highlight any words that describe the noun or the thing. It could be words that tell you what it looks like or something about it. All right, so in this case, the politicians in this country are really corrupt. They are taking our rights. So the word that sticks out to me is this word corrupt because it's telling us something about them. How do we describe them? Well, they are corrupt. So what I'm going to do now is use that word, which I've highlighted in purple, and I'm taking it down to the purple box, and I'm just going to paste it in there. So now I have the corrupt politicians. So that still makes sense, but you notice how I'm starting to move around the words a bit more. For step D, highlight any intensifying words. These are usually words that live next to or before the describing words, and they're words like really or very. So the describing word was corrupt, and if I look for words that are next to it, probably not that way, or before it, I get this word really. Okay, so the purpose of an intensifier is to make a word seem even stronger. That's why we call it intensifier. It makes it seem more intense. So you can be corrupt or you can be really corrupt. So that makes it even more corrupt than that word would have done on its own. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put this in the box. Okay. It says for step E, try reading the words in the table from left to right. When you read it together, it should make sense. So let's give this a shot. The really corrupt politicians. Okay, well, that makes sense. And this is just a quick way to make sure that all of my pieces are in the right place. If I had put the wrong words in the wrong place, it might have read corrupt the politicians really. And that wouldn't make any sense. So it's a really simple way for me to just double check that I've got the words in the right order. Now, step F is the trickiest part, okay? So this is going to be the trickiest part, and I want you to see how you go with this. But like all of the tasks, I'm hoping I should be able to look at your table, and if I can see you've got your noun group right, at least I know you're on the right track. So see how you go with this last step. I want you to look at the words in the sentence that are not highlighted, okay? So we've got the politicians really corrupt are all highlighted. All of these words aren't highlighted. These should explain what the thing, in this case the politicians, was doing in the sentence. So in the new sentence, put your noun group first and then try to finish the sentence with the leftover words. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I've got my words here, the really corrupt politicians. So my new sentence is going to start with my noun group, okay? And this is where the order is going to start to change. This is really interesting. And this is going to help you with your writing because it's actually going to allow you to say more with less words. The really corrupt politicians. Okay, great. So the really corrupt politicians, that's how I'm going to start. Now, here I can see I've got these words in this country and I've got they are taking our rights. Now, that's a whole different sentence right there, isn't it? We can see the full stop. But it doesn't need to be its own sentence anymore. The purpose of the first sentence was to tell us that the politicians were corrupt. But now that we've moved corrupt earlier in the sentence, we already know this, the really corrupt politicians. And that's not a sentence on its own, so now we can add more. So what I'm going to look at in this case is what is it about the politicians? Now it says here they, which is the politicians, are taking our rights. So I'm actually just going to get the last part of this because I haven't highlighted any of those words yet, and I'm just going to paste those there, okay? The really corrupt politicians are taking our rights. All right, now what I've done in this case is I've taken everything that was previously said by two sentences and I've made it into one sentence. And that's the goal here. By making a noun group, I've been able to be more concise in my language, which means I can give more information with less words. And that's one of the steps behind really good writing. Now, there was another way I could have done this because you might say, well, what about these words in the middle? And I could have said, the really corrupt politicians in this country are taking our rights. And that would have also been correct, okay? I'm not so worried about whether you get all of the detail in there at this stage, as long as you can complete a sentence that would have originally been two sentences. So I'm checking to see if you can make the noun group using these words we've got up here, and I'm checking to see if you can turn two sentences into one sentence. I've created some opportunities here for you to give this a shot. So I want you to try and see how far you get. If you get stuck on a particular part, remember that you can just move forward and look at a different step, and we can look at that tricky step together. I'll also just remind you that sometimes there can be more than one word in some of these boxes. I'll give you a hint here. The tree in our backyard was really old and dirty. So old is describing the tree and dirty is also describing the tree. So I could put both of those words in here. So just think about that. There's a couple of other little tricks as you go down. Some of the sentences get a little bit more tricky. And this one down here is actually 3 sentences. Oh, that's going to be a tricky one. I want to see how you go with that. That might be the trickiest one in the bunch. But Give them a shot so I can see how you're going, and then we can work on your learning from there.